Let us move on to the next presentation.
Now we will have the third presentation of the day. It will be on education for cultural diversity in museums. The presenter will be from Ms. Eunmi Lee, who is from the National Museum of Korea, and she's a curator for children's exhibition there. And many children and teenagers visit the museum, so they have developed many programs that can entertain and be helpful to that age group. So, Ms. Lee, how are you today? Thank you for accepting the presentation today. Good afternoon. My name is Eunmi Lee. And thank you for the kind presentation and nice to meet everyone. I would like to share my presentation first. Yes, here we go. Can you hear me well? Yes. So today I would like to talk about education for cultural diversity in museums. And today I would like to focus on the activities of the National Folk Museum. And we have a particular case that we would like to share today. And currently, I am the curator at the Children's Museum at the National Museum of Korea. And I have been involved in many programs for children and youth. So I would like to begin today by defining museums first. So when we think about museums, what comes up in your mind? So it holds and exhibits old and valuable artifacts. And that is true, but I would like to look at it from a different perspective. We are trying to make a more inclusive or broad definition these days. And if we look at some of the commonly used definition, there is the International Council of Museum, ICOM, that is under the UNESCO, and they define museum as follows. They say that museums contribute to society and the development of society as a non-profit permanent organization. It is open to the public and it collects, preserves, researches, exchanges, and displays tangible and intangible evidence of humans and human environment for education, research, and entertainment. So the scope of museum is to include the tangible and intangible evidence of humans and human environment. So that is quite a broad definition. And it also says that the museums need to contribute to society and social development. So it also includes some aspects of the contributions of museums to society. So with the social changes in rapidly changing society these days, the role of museums need to widen, and also the definition of museums need to change. And so ICOM is developing and coming up with new definitions and also discussing on this topic. And if we look at the new definition, you can see it in English here. Museums are democratizing, inclusive, and polyphonic spaces. So it is a critical dialogue about the past and future. So it is quite a practical definition. When it says inclusive and polyphonic, it means that it needs to include all of the contents of everyone, and also means that it needs to harmonize the diverse voices of society. So I think that this emphasizes the social role of museums. And the museums are also trying to adapt to this changing definition of museums in modern society. So I think the focus is on cultural democracy and participatory museum and inclusive museums. And that museums are not about social exclusion, but is actually focusing on inclusion of diverse visitors, increasing the accessibility of museums to various social members, providing cultural experience, ultimately to deliver inclusive value. And in this respect, if the museum was the hall of national culture in the past, I think it is on the process of changing to the hall of cultural diversity education. So the National Folk Museum and the National Museum of Korea as well are trying to focus on this changing definition of museums. So from now on, I would like to focus on some cases or programs that were implemented by the museum. So in 1994 up to around 2009, the National Folk Museum was focused on educating foreigners on Korean culture. So we were introducing the Korean traditions such as Taekyon, a traditional martial art, and on the right image you see some of the rituals that were commonly seen in Korean families. But around 2010, Korean society was transforming from homogeneous to heterogeneous society, and so there was a need to raise awareness on cultural diversity. And in this context, we thought about the role of museums in a multicultural society, and we felt that the museums should take lead on educating people on cultural diversity. So we decided to change the direction of the museum. So from 2010 onwards, the museum was focused on educating the people on understanding other cultures and also changing awareness of the Korean people. And as a program to this end, we had a discovery box. So because we are a national museum, we wanted to play the role of addressing social conflict through cultural policy in a multicultural era. Another objective was to increase understanding of cultural diversity of children who were living in the multicultural area. And also, we wanted to take advantage of the characteristics of a museum. So we wanted to use the real material artifacts and also develop five-sense experiential material to create authentic multicultural experiences for visitors. So at the time, the catchphrase of the Cultural Discovery Box program was open the box and you open the world. So open up a diverse world, cultivate multicultural sensibility, include various experiential materials, a fun box for children. So this was kind of the summary of the program. And we wanted to go beyond addressing conflicts in multicultural society, but also focus on contribute to social inclusion and have cultural diversity in a multicultural society and become a social development driver. So there were some countries that were not very familiar to Korea, but there was a need to become closer to. And so these are some of the countries, for example, where we will see increasing number of women coming into Korea for migrant marriages. And since 2010 up to 2018, you can see the different countries that we explored, and we had around one country every year. So in 2010, it was Mongolia. So we had the cultural discovery box for Mongolia. And we looked at the different types of products, audio, visual material as well, clothing. This is the Vietnam discovery box. And then 2011, it was Philippines. And then if you open the box, you open the world. So like that catchphrase, like that motto, you can see how the children were enjoying the box, the geography, the markets, the lifestyles, the food, the clothing, the housing, festivals were all included in this box. And then in 2012, it was the Korean Cultural Discovery Box. 2013, Uzbekistan, and then Indonesia, China, Japan, India, Thailand. So we had a chance to develop the different boxes to explore these different cultures. There were real materials, so there was clothing, food, children products, toys, instruments, books. We also had visual material, educational material, and experiential material as well. We invited the experts from outside of the museum to design and develop these boxes. The images are from when we were developing the Philippine box. We worked closely with the Filipino community and Philippine cultural experts. So when we were discussing with them, we met about every 2 weeks to discuss on what do we want to include in the box for the children here in Korea. And we also went to business trips to purchase some of the products that we need. We had very strong support from the Philippine government so that we can go and shoot videos. We work together with the Filipino community in Korea as well. And this box, of course, we have it in the museum, but it can travel nationwide to the libraries, the multicultural centers, and to the museums, schools. So we would rent these boxes. So there's a small box and a large box. So the small box, the rental period was up to 2 weeks upon request. The larger boxes was for more long-term, 6-month rental period. So up to 2018, we have some of the statistics. So the boxes traveled around 1,033 organizations and around 550 visitors had a chance to experience these boxes. And so we are using courier service to deliver the boxes. You can see it in the schools, in the museums, in the regional multicultural centers, at festivals, at programs. It was used for different purposes, for education, for festivals, for exhibitions, and various others. And this is a chart of the different regions. It was used in Seoul and metropolitan area, but you can see that other regions were actively using this. In terms of the different types of institutions, it was mostly used in schools, museums, libraries, and also public organizations, from kindergarten students to teachers. So it was widely, actively used. So now we have about 8 years of experience developing and distributing the cultural discovery box. And then we wanted to do something more. We wanted to put up an exhibition based on the success of the boxes at the museum. And we came up with the exhibition theme, Delicious Asian Rice and Bread and Noodles. So we wanted to, convey cultural diversity, but we wanted to be a little bit more specific in the cultural education. And so these are some of the images for the exhibition. And so we had a small corner where it said introduce your family dinner table. And so there was some foods being cooked by the mothers that would be typical to the cultures, to their cultures. So the characteristic of the cultural discovery box is that it was based on a multicultural approach. So it was about learning about cultural differences, about tolerance, and the foreigners were not subject to the education, but rather they were participating as lecturers and teachers in the process of developing the boxes. And we developed a lot of material, so you're able to play the role of a platform in terms of promoting cultural diversity education. And then the exhibition, the Delicious Asia exhibition that I talked about earlier, that was based on the success of the Discovery Box, we derived the common theme of food culture, and we took a multicultural approach. So on top of cultural diversity, there is also universality, and we wanted to increase understanding and empathy on the universality of different cultures. So in this process, we also worked closely together with different associations that were supporting migrant marriages. And so now we have about 10 years experience in cultural diversity programs. And we hope that our efforts contributed to expanding the role and the scope of cultural diversity education. When we first started this a decade ago, we wanted to think about what we are going to call this box. In the long term, we wanted to use the cultural box, but we felt that kind of the gift bag would be a better name given the characteristic of this particular program. But during the past 10 years, I think Korea society was able to change and evolve in terms of cultural diversity. And when in the exhibition, I talked about let me introduce our dinner table. I would like to introduce the food of my mother's culture. And so while we were developing these programs, we used introducing the food of our mother culture. So we first came up with the concept of our mother's culture, but actually that mother's culture is our culture. So I think maybe we can think about changing the name, or we can be more careful about changing the name in the future, because the name can mean a lot to the people who are visiting to those exhibitions, as it can have many implications. uh, Multicultural education, I think we need to focus on kind of non-formal education that encourages the voluntary participation of the learner, and also focus on exploration, experiential activities, cooperative activities that can really bring about the authentic experience for the learners. So it's not only about knowledge acquisition, but it also includes establishing cultural identities, changing the attitudes and values of the learners, and thereby creating a open heart and open mindset without any bias or stereotypes. So when they visit the museum, we would divide them into small groups so that they can touch and explore the different items. They would imagine, talk about what this particular item would be for using their imagination. So I would like to ask you to please keep your time. So this is the New Year's. We were comparing Korean and Vietnamese New Year's during the summer vacation. There were some folklore games that were played by children at the museum, and then there was the cultural diplomats. So the children were creating YouTube videos introducing Korean culture to peers abroad. So all of the materials and all of the boxes that we lent are available on our website. So you can check out our website if you're interested. So meeting other cultures is an opportunity to look back at our own culture and have better understanding of it. And cultural diversity enriches the cultural assets of a society and teaches people to live together, thereby maturing the society. So I believe that these would be the achievements of the cultural discovery box. There would be some limitations that we are facing as the program has been around for 10 years now. And so now we are trying to set a new direction of where the program should head in the future and to make sure that it can continue to evolve. And I am really looking forward to all of the presentations today. I'm sure that will help us make better programs in the future.